Спасибо большое. Не буду скрывать, в разное время у меня были разные мысли. Но сейчас вы правы. Сейчас такое время, когда нужно принимать решения. Я буду баллотироваться на должность президента Российской Федерации.
This is my video update on this Friday afternoon, December the 8th. Let's talk about some news. And how about John Kirby and the statement he made the other day where he claims that no other country in the world is doing more than the United States to alleviate the pain and suffering of the people of Gaza. That was a statement from John Kirby, whose title I can never remember. Quite an interesting statement from Kirby, huh? So this morning, Russian President Vladimir Putin, he announced that he will be running for re-election in March 2024. Putin announced his re-election bid. Russia's next presidential election will be held in March 2024. That is coming from RT. Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that he will seek re-election in 2024. Several media outlets reported on Friday, citing his speech in the Kremlin. So what do you think? A good move on Russian President Vladimir Putin's part to seek re-election in 2024? I think it is. I think it's a very good move. Very good news, I believe, for Russia, for the Russian people, for BRICS, for much of the world. A very welcome announcement from Vladimir Putin. And Hunter Biden. How about Hunter Biden and a whole bunch of indictments that came down yesterday against Hunter Biden from the BBC? Hunter Biden's tax indictment, drugs, escorts, and girlfriends. That's the title from the BBC. Come on, BBC, you're being a little hard on Hunter, I think. He's much more than drugs, escorts, and girlfriends. He's a Renaissance man. The closest thing to a modern day Leonardo da Vinci. That is Hunter Biden. He is an accomplished author. He's an accomplished painter. He's an accomplished chemist, because he mixes all those things together, all those chemicals together. He's an accomplished real estate investor, an accomplished venture capitalist, an accomplished lawyer. How can we forget his legal training? He's an energy expert. Burisma, board of Burisma, an energy expert. He's sorry about the noise. He's back here is. I'm just wondering what that noise is. Because back here is a little pond. Right back here, and just some columns, just sitting there, columns. Yeah. So he's an accomplished lawyer, an energy expert. Obviously, he knows Ukraine and Russia very well. So he's an expert on all things Ukraine and all things Russia. Why else would he be appointed to the board of Burisma? He's a Renaissance man. Much more to Hunter Biden than drugs, escorts, and girlfriends, according to the title from the BBC. I would say the one weakness for Hunter Biden is technology, tech. He's not so good when it comes to tech, like uploading stuff on iCloud, images and video going on iCloud, or with MacBooks. He's not so good when it comes to laptops and MacBooks and technology and cloud storage. That's his one weakness. You take away the one weakness and you're dealing with a genius, the smartest person that Biden has ever known, that Joe Biden has ever known. So let's see. The BBC, they write, U.S. President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, is facing a 9-count criminal indictment for alleged tax evasion. The 56-page charge sheet accuses him of evading $1.4 million in taxes from 2016 to 2019 and funding an extravagant lifestyle. That's a quote. Funding an extravagant lifestyle. Much of the recovering crack cocaine addict's alleged illicit activities occurred while his father was U.S. Vice President under Barack Obama, but the current U.S. President is not accused of wrongdoing or even mentioned in the latest indictment. The Yale-educated lawyer faces up to 17 years in prison if convicted. Hunter Biden was separately hit with a federal indictment on gun charges in September. It's a chainsaw. It's a chainsaw that I can see there, but I'm not quite sure what he's cutting. Can't make it out. So isn't it interesting that the collective West media, whenever they talk about Hunter, they always have to insert a paragraph, usually up towards the top, where they say that that Joe Biden is not involved in any of this stuff. They always have to put that in there. They have to make sure that the reader understands that Joe Biden, he has nothing to do with what his son was up to. They always have to insert that sentence. Oh man, Donald Trump Jr. He tweeted with regards to this indictment. Donald Trump Jr. tweeted, "Mark my words, this was planned, and they're going to use this as the excuse to not testify before Congress. He'll end up with nothing or a slap on the wrist, but it'll make sure he evades the thousands of things GOP oversight is looking at. Bookmark it." That is Donald Trump's take on these indictments against Hunter, a Renaissance man, that Hunter Biden. So Tucker Carlson, he put out a tweet yesterday connected to Project Ukraine and the $61 billion being discussed with Project Ukraine and Lloyd Austin. And here is what Tucker Carlson put out on Twitter X. "The Biden administration is openly threatening Americans over Ukraine. In a classified briefing in the House yesterday, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin informed members that if they don't appropriate more money for Zelensky, quote, we'll send your uncles, cousins, and sons to fight Russia. Pay the oligarchs or we'll kill your kids." That is the tweet from Tucker Carlson. I believe that his information is 100% accurate. I can absolutely see Lloyd Austin, also known as Darth Vader. I can see him going to members of Congress and telling them, if you don't give $61 billion to Zelensky, well, your sons, your daughters, your cousins' friends, your daughter's friends, your dogs, your cats, everybody's going to have to fight the Russians. Absolutely, I can see Lloyd Austin making those threats to members of Congress. But Twitter, they put they put a community note to this post. And the community note adds this context. Austin warned Congress Tuesday that if lawmakers fail to pass more aid to Ukraine, that it will very likely lead to U.S. troops on the ground in Europe defending NATO allies in other countries Russia may target next. Ah, yes, the domino theory. Domino theory 2.0. If Russia wins in Ukraine, then Russia's going to invade all of Europe. Country after country will fall to the Putin, including NATO countries, and if Russia goes after NATO countries, well, then that means Article 5, and then that means that US troops are going to have to fight Russian troops. Domino theory 2.0. By the way, Elon Musk commented on this tweet, and he said this. He really said this. That was what Elon Musk said to Tucker Carlson's post, and Tucker replied to Elon, he really did, confirmed. Yeah, why not? Why not? Why would Austin not say this? He's in a panic. He absolutely is in a panic to get more money to the military-industrial complex, and some money to Zelensky, and of course, 10% for the big guy. We can never forget 10% for the big guy. But yeah, that's the narrative now. Lloyd Austin, 3-4 days ago, was saying that $61 billion to Project Ukraine was going to be good for American jobs. That's what Lloyd Austin said 3-4 days ago. Now the narrative is that money has to go to Ukraine in order to prevent U.S. troops fighting Russian troops. That's the new narrative, because Putin wants to take over all of NATO, all of Europe. Because the most direct route towards NATO is through Ukraine. You just have to look at a map. The easiest way to get to NATO countries is through Ukraine. Absolutely. It's not like Russia has other NATO countries on its borders. No. That doesn't exist. The quickest way to NATO is via this huge territory known as Ukraine, which has been built up by NATO over the last 8-9 years. Military buildup, weapons, fortifications, but that's the easiest way for Putin to conquer NATO, is to go through Ukraine. Just look at any map and you'll see what I mean. And I don't see why NATO's worried, to be quite honest. Why would NATO worry about Russia? Wasn't it Lloyd Austin and Kirby and Blinken and Bidenopoulos? Weren't they telling us that that Russia's military is the second best military in Ukraine, which means that Ukraine is the best military. Ukraine is the best military in Ukraine. Russia's the second best military in Ukraine. So, I mean, no match at all for the powerful, almighty NATO. So what's NATO worried about? NATO could easily defeat Ukraine, which would mean that NATO could easily defeat Russia, if Russia's the second best military in Ukraine. Isn't that what they were telling us all these months? Russia's the second best military in Ukraine. that was what Blinken and Kirby were telling us. So what's NATO worried about? There's nothing to worry about. Russia's military. Weren't they telling us that they spent 3% of their defense budget to the United States has spent 3% of their defense budget to destroy 50% of Russia's military? So if Russia's military has been destroyed by 50%, what's NATO worried about? Nothing to worry about. So I don't understand the panic from Austin, given that Russia's military has been 50% depleted, annihilated by the best military in Ukraine, which is Ukraine. So NATO has nothing to worry about. At least that's what I've understood over the past year and a half, unless, just maybe, unless, I don't know, maybe they were lying. Maybe Austin and Kirby and Blinken and Bidenopoulos, maybe they were lying to us, and maybe Russia's military has not been annihilated by the NATO proxy, and maybe, just maybe, Russia's military is not the second strongest military in Ukraine. Maybe Russia's military is the strongest military in the world, according to U.S. News and World Report. Remember that article from U.S. News that came out a month ago, which ranked the Russian military as the #1 military in the world? Maybe Austin and Kirby and Blinken and Bidenopoulos, maybe they have been lying to everybody over the past year and a half. Just a thought. Just a thought. if NATO's proxy is defeating Russia, then what does NATO have to worry about? Anyway, Austin is freaking out. Kirby is freaking out. Kirby said that the money, no more money, and he said that the U.S. can't guarantee money to Ukraine until Congress approves funding. So Kirby's freaking out. Blinken is freaking out. Antony Blinken, I always say Antony Blinken, he's freaking out. 90% of the security assistance we provided to Ukraine has actually been spent here in the United States. Blinken openly calls the tragedy that is happening in Ukraine a win-win and an opportunity for the U.S. economic growth, and wants to keep going. So it's been a win-win. I don't see any problems. I don't see any problems at all. If it's been a win-win, according to Antony Blinken, 90% of the money for Ukraine has been spent in the United States. Really, Antony Blinken? That's quite a statement. 90% in the U.S., 10% for the big guy? That's 100%. How is Zelensky buying all those homes? I don't understand. Anyway, Blinken, he's freaking out. Trump's former defense secretary, Mark Esper, he's freaking out. He was on MSNBC, and he said, and I quote, "I think one of the first things that would happen if Trump was elected," he said, "I think one of the first things that would happen is he would withdraw support for Ukraine. And of course, if that were to happen, the whole effort to support Ukraine in its war with Russia would eventually crumble. The United States is like the big block in the Jenga tower. You pull us out and everything collapses." That's Trump's former Pentagon chief, Mark Esper. Boy, Trump, you know, he really hired some terrible people. He really hired terrible people. And they all turned on him, every single one of them, almost all of them, with the exception of a few, but so many of them turned on Trump. Esper being one of them. And he's basically saying, if Orange Man wins, well then, Ukraine is lost, NATO is lost, because it's one Jenga tower, and it just collapses like this column, right? It just, like a collapsing Jenga tower. That's the statement from Esper. Everyone's freaking out over Project Ukraine, over the collapse of Project Ukraine. Norway is freaking out. That's right, the country of Norway, they are freaking out, according to Russian media. Now this is Russian media, but big Russian networks. They are reporting that Norwegian soldiers began practicing funerals for fellow soldiers during training exercises. Due to the fighting in Ukraine, Norwegian recruits will be taught to bury fellow soldiers in the field. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign at all. I don't know, maybe some of the pilots of those F-16s will be from Norway. They're definitely going to be from NATO, a lot of those pilots for those F-16s that are scheduled to enter the conflict in the first quarter of 2024. So Ukraine is also freaking out. They should be freaking out because winter is here, and word on the street is that a lot of the money, the 2, 3, 4, 500 billion that has been given to Project Ukraine, a lot of the money was washed away, kind of disappeared. No one really knows where that money went, and the big chunk of that money was supposed to go into the electric grid, the power energy infrastructure of Ukraine in order to prepare for this winter. And word on the street is that the money wasn't invested in the energy infrastructure of Ukraine, and they're freaking out because it's getting very, very cold, and it looks like it's going to be a pretty hard winter. At least that's what it looks like. Things could change. Maybe it'll warm up, but it It looks like it's going to be a cold winter. A lot of the money given to the Zelensky regime that was supposed to go to build up the energy infrastructure was somehow just was misplaced. It was misplaced somewhere. And the energy system is very weak. Very, very weak. Ukraine declares a power emergency. A sharp cold snap has prompted Kiev to import electricity from neighbors. The Ukrainian government on Thursday requested emergency assistance from Poland, Romania, and Slovakia as freezing temperatures caused a shortage of power in the electrical grid. The state utility Ukrenergo has said. Maybe it would have been a good idea if Congress, if the Biden White House, if Congress had conducted maybe an audit of all the money that was going to Project Ukraine. That might have been a good idea, but they didn't. They didn't, and now Ukraine's energy grid is not looking so good, and I'm positive that the Zelensky regime, they're going to ask for more money to put into the energy grid. It's not all doom and gloom for Project Ukraine, though. Not all doom and gloom. The Biden White House, they announced that they're going to be putting together a transition team. A transition team which is going to transition weapons production, ammunition production from the collective West to Ukraine. From the Kiev Independent, Ukraine and U.S. sign a statement of intent on co-production of weapons. So the Biden White House, they said that they have created an interagency deal team, and they're going to appoint a special advisor to Ukraine's Ministry of Strategic Industries to help increase weapons production and counter corruption. So they're going to have Biden White House experts in Ukraine to build production facilities to ramp up ammunition and weapons production. So if the collective West, the United States, and the entirety of the collective West, the European Union, if they were not able to keep up with Russia's production of weapons and ammunition, and they were not able to keep up with the demands that the Ukraine military had with regards to ammunition and to artillery. Tell me how building factories in Ukraine during a war is going to help Ukraine keep up with Russia. I don't know how building the factories inside of Ukraine during a conflict is going to make the difference when the entire collective West was not able to make a difference. Sounds like another scheme to wash some funds. I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they are going to build some factories, and maybe Ukraine is going to produce a million shells a year. No, scratch that. 1 million shells a month. 1 million shells a month, and they're going to totally eclipse the shell production of Russia, and it'll be game over for the Putin. And of course, these factories, the Russian military, they're going to allow these factories to produce the ammunition. They're not going to touch these factories. Ammunition, tanks, helicopters, fighter jets. The Russian military, they're going to allow all of this military production to thrive in Ukraine. Sounds like a good plan from the Biden White House. So the Russian economy is going through a bit of a rough patch. As the most powerful woman in the world told us a year and a half ago, Russia's economy is in tatters. It is in tatters. They are using chips from washing machines to power up their fighter jets. And Ursula, she was right. She was right. That is why she was named by Forbes the most powerful woman in the world. Because when Ursula says she's going to do something, she does something. She follows through. A master strategist, Ursula von der Leyen. And Russia's economy is hurting. It's hurting bad. Russia will post 3.5% economic growth for 2023, according to Putin. According to the Putin. Western countries have failed to destabilize the country's economy, according to the Russian president. Only 3.5% growth? That's pathetic, man. That is pathetic. 15,000 sanctions, 12 sanctions packages from the EU, and you can only post 3.5% growth? Oh my God, look at the fish. Wow. That is awesome. I don't know, can you guys see the fish? I hope you can. They're huge. Amazing. So yeah, it's pretty pathetic. Only 3.5% growth. Man. Gotta get some regime change in Russia. In tatters. The Russian economy grew by 3.2% in the first 10 months of 2023 and will post a 3.5% growth by the end of the year, beyond the levels recorded prior to the conflict in Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin said during his address at VTB Bank's Russia Calling Forum on Thursday. Putin said Western states had aimed to destabilize the Russian economy, to make the Russian people suffer the financial sanctions imposed on the country since February 2022. However, these goals set by our ill-wishers have clearly not been achieved, the president added. There are still things we need to work on, of course, but we have proven that we are capable of tackling the most difficult challenges. The Russian economy is coping, Putin stated, adding that Moscow expects the country's GDP to continue expanding and grow by 3.5% by the end of the year. Putin pointed out that the Russian economy is already the largest in Europe and is way ahead of all major EU countries in terms of economic growth. By the way, I read that Russia's budget deficit in these 11 months is at 800 billion rubles. Pretty much an all-time low, it seems to me. I think it's like 0.5% of their GDP is their deficit. That's awful, Russia. That's awful. You guys got to step up. You got to put more debt on the books. You need a bigger budget deficit. Like 50% of GDP or 100%. You're not trying hard enough, Russia. What are you doing? 3.5% growth. Oh, boys. Those sanctions really worked out well, didn't they? Oh, man, those sanctions really did a number on the Russian economy. They're going to build statues of von der Leyen in Moscow. Statues of her. That would be a great troll, by the way. That would be a great troll. Statue with like a plaque, like right at the base of the statue, like a plaque saying, Ursula von der Leyen, most powerful woman in the world, helping the Russian economy to reach record levels of growth. Tatters. Putin also, he said that Russia, that the critics, the ill-wishers of Russia, they can no longer go around and say that Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country, because Putin, he said that the Russian economy is producing a whole lot more than just energy. A whole lot more. According to Putin, the largest share of the country's economic growth comes from non-resource-based industries, namely manufacturing, transport, logistics, construction, information technologies, communication, housing, and communal services. The sectors accounting for 54% of economic growth in the second quarter of the year. Another 44% were the so-called supporting industries, trade, and public catering, Putin said. Meanwhile, resource development accounted for only 2% of the growth in the period, the president noted. Now let's see them try to call Russia a gas station, Putin said. That famous line from John McCain that everyone in the collective West, everybody, politicians, media personalities, TV, media news hosts, journalists, analysts, everybody, they internalized that John McCain statement. Russia is a gas station masquerading as a country, and everyone believed it. And they based this entire conflict with Russia, this entire war with Russia, they based it on that one statement from John McCain. They thought that all the sanctions would collapse the Russian economy. Boy, were they wrong. They based an entire conflict, an entire foreign policy, a foreign policy that is now destroying the collective West. They based this entire thing on a statement that John McCain made some 10 years ago? Unfreaking believable. Let's go over there, see what's over there. So let's do a pre-clown world, and then we'll get into a clown world. And the pre-clown world has to do with Blinken. Let's just take a quick look and see what this chainsaw activity is about. Fixing the fence. Okay. So, Blinken was on CNN yesterday, and they asked him about the whole Xi dictator moment that happened a few weeks ago when the Chinese leader was in San Fran and Biden called him a dictator, and we all know Blinken's reaction when that happened. And CNN, they asked him to comment on that. And here is what Blinken said. Quote, "I'm tempted to say that we'd had a really long day, a very important and intense conversation with China. My neck was a little bit stiff, and you know, that happens," he told host Gayle King and Charles Barkley in a portion of the interview that aired on Thursday via CNN. Politico writes, any sarcasm aside, Blinken acknowledged the tension between the two nations. But look, as I said before, it's not exactly a secret that we have a very different system from China's. The president always speaks very clearly, very directly, and he speaks for everyone, he said. So the reaction from Blinken was, had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with Biden calling Xi a dictator. It was just that he had a stiff neck. So I think we can walk down here. There's a mosaic here, but it's pretty beaten up, this mosaic. I bet you once upon a time this was a beautiful mosaic, but it's in bad shape. So, yeah, just a stiff neck, you know. Blinken, stiff neck. When Biden said, she's a dictator, Blinken was like, my neck. I need a massage or something. Anywhere in San Francisco where I can get a massage? Maybe I'll call up Hunter. Maybe Hunter knows a couple of places. Just joking, man. Just joking. Oh, boy. Just having fun. Just joking, man. I'm sure that Blinken's reaction to the dictator comment from Bidenopolis was all about having just a stiff neck. A long day, a long, hard day, you know? Just bad timing, inconvenient timing, you know? That neck thing, and Biden says dictator, and, you know. All right, let's do a clown world now. Let's do a clown world. And two clowns may be together. It looks like we're going to have a two clown show coming up soon because President of Argentina, is he president now or is he still president-elect of Argentina, Javier Milei, according to Argentinian officials, they have invited Ukraine President Zelensky to attend the inauguration. Okay, so he's president-elect Milei to attend his inauguration in Argentina. According to the Kiev Independent, Zelensky to attend inauguration of incoming Argentine President Milei. Now, according to this article from the Kiev Independent, there has been no comment from the Zelensky administration about this invitation. This is coming from the Argentine side, from Argentina's, Milei's side. They have invited Zelensky. So we'll see if Zelensky accepts this invitation. It will be his first trip, I believe, to Latin America. And the article from the Kiev Independent, they talk about how Milei is a strong supporter of Ukraine, a strong supporter of Zelensky's, and he likes Zelensky, and he supports Zelensky and Project Ukraine. Can you imagine that? Milei, first of all, Milei is inviting the Zelensky curse to him. He's inviting the Zelensky curse. If Zelensky accepts this invitation, he is inviting the curse to him. The minute he shakes Zelensky's hand, it's over. It's over, man. So I don't know why he would do such a thing. I warned him. I warned Milei, don't travel to Kiev and see Zelensky. Okay, he didn't travel to Kiev, but man, you're inviting Zelensky to you? That's like a double Zelensky curse. So first of all, that's not a smart move from Milei, but you know, I have to admit, I would very much like to see those two guys together. I have to admit, I would very much like to see them hanging out. Oh boy, Milei, you're off to a bad start. I think you're off to a rocky start. First, you go and discuss IMF loans and stuff like that with Yellen. And now you're talking about Zelensky coming to Argentina. Two comedians together. Zelensky can play the piano during the inauguration. Oh, man. All right, I will end the video there. theduran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, ODYSEE, BitChute, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter X. And go to the Duran shop, 20% off. Use the code TheDuran20. There you go. Take care.